Hello everyone and welcome back to a brand new video and welcome back to more iRacing. Yes, today we are officially, kind of unofficially, kicking off 2024 Season 4. Yes, of course, that means there's a little bit of new content to go through inside the sim. Sadly, first of all, apparently McLaren still won't greenlight the 720S, so I'm going to have to do a separate video on that in the next couple of days. But we have got a few cool new bits that I'm looking forward to diving in with today. And of course, the two main headliners then for a predominantly road course racer like myself has got to be the new BMW M4 G82 GT4. Yes, I love the catchy name. And of course, Cadwell Park. Yes, an English circuit. I must admit now, obviously, since we've got this circuit, hopefully they're going to be bringing my local venue to the game in the not too distant future. That is Castle Combe. And if you know Castle Combe at all, it would be chaos on iRacing as well, which I would think would be absolutely hilarious. Of course, we've obviously got a few other bits and pieces, a few other tweaks. Also, we're going to be heading over to the new version of Spa-Francorchamps as well, just to take a quick look around at that venue. Of course, timestamps will be linked down below if you just want to head to that point of the video. And of course, obviously, if you do want to get iRacing and you haven't already, please do consider using my referral link as well. You help support the channel in doing so and get yourself subscribed. We're trying to hit 15,000 subs here on the channel as well. But yeah, let's head out then onto the circuit. I'm looking forward to the new M4. I quite liked the old one, so it's going to be interesting to see how they stack up. Well, immediate impression then I'm getting of the car, and it looks fairly similar to the old one. I guess the dash is quite different there, and once again, I do always like the Motec displays on these cars as well. I like the fact that, obviously, in our age of short attention spans, even race cars now give you the option of looking in front or giving you a side view at something else as well. Now, let's give the car a quick sound test then. Sounds pretty good. Sounds pretty damn good, I must say that as well. Now, I'll be honest, this might serve as a bit of a controversial opinion. I'm not the world's biggest fan of Cadwell Park. Ultimately, I'm not convinced for most people on iRacing it's going to be the purchase you want to make. Because, as you can tell instantly, it's rather narrow. Now, it's going to be a good circuit probably if you're using maybe TCRs and GT4 cars, but you're certainly not going to want to race GT3s around here. And, you know, MX-5s, so go to GT86s, Renault Clio Cup, all that kind of thing is going to be good fun around this venue. As clearly the brakes, I've got to be slightly more aggressive with them than I try to be there. But yeah, anything like a GT3 car, a GTP, something like that, you're not going to be... Or I hope iRacing isn't going to bring you here as well with those cars. Now, obviously, on the Formula side of things, because obviously we've now got sports car and open wheeler, I would have thought we might see... Well, we'll probably get Formula V, Formula 4. We might get the Super Formula Lights car, but I don't think we'll see Formula 3 here either, or anything like that. So, ultimately, yeah, if you're not racing the slower cars, which I would highly recommend you do, it's probably not going to be popular at all for you inside the game. As clearly I have taken my disdain out on Cadwell Park with a tiny little bit of contact, and I've damaged the car. Well done, Matt. Yeah, so as I was saying, of course, if, you know, you are using those slower cars, you do prefer the slower vehicles inside iRacing, I think, you know, we all know how iRacing's pay model works. You're going to end up having to buy this circuit, obviously, if you want to compete in full seasons and things like that, at least throughout the early campaigns. But honestly, maybe timestamp this video 2 years from now, I'm not convinced this track will be very popular anymore. And obviously, you know, iRacing is expensive, and for most people I do completely appreciate, you know, you don't want to be spending even more money on this sim than you absolutely have to. Now, of course, you know, on iRacing as well, on the other side of that, you do get a very, very good level of polish, as we've come to expect. You know, the track looks wonderful, it feels accurate. I've never actually been to Croft. It's one of the kind of UK race circuits that I haven't actually been to. Of course, it's mainly now known for motorbike racing, which is obviously something that if anybody's watched some on my MotoGP Let's Play, I don't know much about, admittedly. But, you know, I can certainly see, obviously, you know, the long flowing corners, You know, this place is still very, very scary on a bike now. Yeah, obviously, it's kind of a bit of an odd one, I'll be honest, when it was announced to iRacing, because it's kind of not popular for any international series. Even British touring cars doesn't race here, obviously, because it would just be chaos. I mean, how narrow this place gets in quite a few spots, and imagine British touring cars going over this bump as well. Obviously, that's normally where some of the more powerful bikes get a little bit of air as well. So I was, yeah, kind of surprised when they announced this circuit was coming to the sim, because ultimately, yeah, I wouldn't have thought, unless you really are, you know, a bit of a nerd when it comes to British race circuits, or I think it was on Project Cars 2, I want to say, back in the day. It doesn't really feature on many games. It's not a particularly popular circuit. It's lovingly known as the Nürburgring of the UK. So I guess that kind of suits. It's, like I say, it's very, very narrow, as you can already tell. I mean, even GT4 cars, like I said, if they do race here, you're going to be following the guy in front quite a lot, because, I mean, this thing takes up half the road. Luckily, I'm so slightly down on my ghost time at the moment, so you can kind of see just how big the car looks on the venue as well there. But yeah, there really isn't much room to maneuver around this place, and yeah, I think, honestly, if you're going in anything quicker than like a Clio Cup car or something like that, it's probably going to be, I mean, the only way you're going to be able to make overtakes around here is just to get the elbows out with the other guys around you. Now, we've spoken about Cadwell a bit then, let's talk about the BMW. Ultimately, you know, it does feel a bit like, you know, how people often describe trying to drive a Formula 1 car at Monaco. It feels way too big for this venue. However, it does also feel very, very similar to the old BMW M4. Now, obviously, they have been giving people credits if you recently purchased the F82 M4. Unfortunately, I'm not included in that. I bought it when it first released. So I've ended up having to buy this car for a second time, which feels a little bit disappointing. Obviously, for those of you that do know, I wouldn't call myself a BMW fanboy at all, but I do own a BMW right now, so I've kind of got a little bit of an allegiance to this thing as well. The gearing, obviously, setups and things like that will absolutely transform the way this car feels. Gearing feels a little bit out of whack for this circuit. First gear feels way too short, and then kind of third and fourth are, well, kind of feels slightly out of place to me in my early testing, but again, you know, that's more just tuning setup rather than an actual problem with the car. Brakes feel good. Now I've got them up to temperature as well, which I'm sure obviously makes life a little bit easier, and hopefully, you know, we're getting a few good clean laps under our belt as well now. Hopefully we'll get a clean one on the board this time, but ultimately, yeah, I've got a bit of a weird experience with the GT4 cars. I only really like driving one of them, and that's the Mercedes, which apparently, I was watching a Daniel Morad video a few weeks ago. Apparently that is like the most realistic GT4 handling car in the game. It still kind of feels, most of the GT4s inside iRacing, like just loose, slow GT3 cars, I tend to find. And that makes driving them, often you really do struggle to kind of get them anywhere near the limit, like I said, with the exception of the Mercedes there. So it's a little bit strange to kind of try and wrap my head around still. But that being said, you know, it does feel fairly good as well. I'm probably going to make like a separate video doing a side-by-side comparison between this and the old F82 M4. Weirdly, and it might be wrong because it's only on the prelim for 2024 Season 4 in terms of the schedule. So that was a little bit too hot into there. The F82 M4 is still in one of the series. I don't know whether that's a typo. I don't know whether that's intentional. But obviously, if you have bought the old car and you don't want to buy the new one, you are still going to be able to race it. Admittedly, not in most of the series you'll want to. Because, for example, now, TCR cars are being given the wet tyres, so Falcon Tyre Challenge, IMSA Pilot Challenge as well, those 2 hours every other week Enduros, they're now going to start featuring changeable conditions, which is going to be really, really cool, and I'd love to try and get involved in a couple of those if a weekend opens up for me. But yeah, that's kind of going to mean, you know, if you would just run the BMW GT4 car, then you might kind of feel forced into buying the new one as well there, which is... It honestly, it kind of feels a bit like when we got our third Ferrari GT3 car in Sim. A little bit of the kick in the teeth, especially when you think the 488 wasn't that old either. And I think literally we had one of the GT3 Ferraris for like a year before it was updated, which still feels really, really stupid at the end of the day. But ultimately, yeah, I think the old BMW name has been out for at least a couple of years, I want to say. It was obviously one of the first of the GT4 cars to launch inside the sim. But yeah, other little bits and pieces I'm noticing. Track limits. Very, very aggressive here as well. You're either inside the white lines or you're getting a 1x. So if you are doing racing around here, it is going to be important that you keep it nice and tidy. I want to try and go for a sub 1 minute 30 if we can try and get a lap time on the board. But ultimately, yeah, like I said, I think both of these purchases, obviously the car is far more about whether you know, if you ran the BMW, the old GT4 car, that was kind of your car of choice for, you know, those GT4 races. I'd say the new one, yeah, is a welcome upgrade. If you were running one of the other GT4 cars, honestly, I would say don't bother. And like I said as well with the rundown at Cadwell Park, it's good, but I don't think it's going to be around forever, to be honest. I don't think it's going to be a popular circuit as well. You know, it might seem really tempting, obviously throughout the first couple of seasons when it's appearing in everything, but yeah, I don't think this place is going to hang around for all too long, at least in terms of popularity as well, because very quickly people are going to realise the only way you're going to be able to overtake here is either the guy in front makes a mistake or you move him, which is probably not great. And you kind of look at some of the other circuits like that in Sim. Weirdly, I would say with the exception of Long Beach, which always seems to hold out quite well, yeah, it's not going to be a particularly popular venue for all too long. I'm going to give you one lap then with the audio. We're going to try and nail it and see if we can dip under that 1 minute 30 mark. Messed it up through the final couple of corners. The lap was just starting to get away from me. That's a little bit frustrating there, but yeah, I've enjoyed that. It is a good fun experience. This thing, when you're trying a hot lap here, feels way too big as well. But ultimately, yeah, a few tenths away from my target. Let's head over to Spa then and just see what the new changes are like. Well, here we are then, back in my Cadillac, trusty Cadillac CTS-V, I should say. We managed to do an entire Le Mans 24 together, near enough. So I thought it was only fair that we bring this thing here to Spa as well. And of course, obviously, I got to watch most of the World Endurance race here earlier on in the year. The less spoke about that, the better, because Spa, I would not recommend going for WEC. It was an absolute nightmare. But yeah, we're more interested then in the all-new scan of Spa as well. And I must admit, it's a bit weird. It's very nice, but it is a bit weird. Thinking, you know, iRacing has had the 2010 version of this place now for 14 years, long before I was ever a member on the sim. It is slightly odd to say goodbye, but I certainly am not going to claim that I'm going to miss it as well. There, of course, obviously, we've already done some laps around here inside F1 24 as well. Not that that game is as accurate as this one, but ultimately, yeah, this place, you know, Spa is still Spa at the end of the day, but yeah, it certainly looks fresh. With, you know, new curbs and things like that. A couple of small alterations as well. Obviously, like the curbs at the top of the hill and things like that. And obviously the runoff areas in a couple of places as well made a whole lot narrower. I'm also... Oh, I tried to take the F1 line through there. Easy does it. Easy does it. I'm also going to try and do the moto layout on my kind of next lap. Just to kind of see what that's like as well. And of course, annoyingly, on the endurance pit lane, you don't quite get to kind of experience Eau Rouge in the way I would want to as well there. But you can see, yeah, updated gravel and everything like that right on the exit of Stavelot. They're still able to pick up big speed, though, as we make our way in towards the final couple of corners. Obviously, you can still run a little bit wide on the entry there. And, oh, yeah, I must admit, obviously, I'm used to handling this place in a Formula 1 car. Ooh, ah! I might have, again, just panicked slightly on the brakes there as we make our way through the final couple of corners. But yeah, this place, though, like I said, I've been lucky to be able to go here a couple of times this year. I mean, again, iRacing has done a very good job, and unlike the new BMW that I mentioned a minute ago, which kind of feels half like an update, half like a new car, this place is completely free. If you've already got Spa, well, if you already own it, you can obviously get this update for free as well there, which is really, really good, and I mean, should be accepted as well. At the end of the day, there you go. That is the all-new Eau Rouge. Almost nailed. And yeah, this track, though, once again, looks absolutely brilliant. And I think, you know, it's going to be as popular as ever, and we're still going to get pile-ups of Eau Rouge as well at the end of the day there. So I'm using my F1 line too much. So I've got to remember the Cadillac can't brake that late. Does sound better than a Formula 1 car, but I can't quite brake as late in it as I do in a Formula 1 machine. But ultimately, yeah, I think they've used, obviously, new scanning data. It was always kind of funny when you go back to iRacing, because the big complaint everyone always has with the F1 game is that the bus stop chicane was wildly inaccurate. Of course, that was never really a problem on iRacing, because it was, you know, laser scanned. So it still obviously feels very similar. Obviously, like I said, you know, there are a few tweaks and changes with the curbs and things like that. But ultimately, yeah, it doesn't feel particularly... I mean, it shouldn't feel that different. Of course, most of the track hasn't really changed. There's only really a few spots there, but of course, I think it was just kind of easier to, you know, try and scan the entire layout rather than trying to fit all the new pieces together as best as possible. So, you know, it's a very, very welcome addition. Like I said, I think I'd feel differently if this place wasn't, you know, if you had to buy it again, if you had, like, classic Spa and modern Spa, then I think people would feel very, very put out, as we'll try not to lock up that time round. Right, I need to remember to do the moto layout as well on our third lap here, because, yeah, I mean, just hot lapping around here is always fun, isn't it? Spa is such an iconic track. I was originally hoping... Whoa! To do this in the McLaren 720S, but of course, yeah, that, as mentioned in the intro, hasn't quite happened yet. So we're going to have to wait just a little bit longer for that car as well. But like I said, I will do a video covering that. Hopefully it'll get greenlit before round 1 of the new season, because I could be tempted. I mean, everybody will do GT3 in it, won't they? But I could be tempted to give it a whirl over the course of next season as well there. I've mentioned it before. I want to come back and do a bit more iRacing throughout the final kind of 3 months of 2024. I've mentioned it in various spots as well. I'm actually going away for a month at the end of the year, which I'm still very scared about in terms of kind of leaving YouTube for the longest break in an incredibly long time, especially obviously over the Christmas period. But yeah, hopefully things will run smoothly. But yeah, I kind of want to take a bit more time with the sim, of course. F1 24, I'm still enjoying it up to a certain point, but I kind of want to branch out a little bit more as well there. I forgot again to take the moto layout. Let's do this. Nope, don't hit the wall. That would have been really, really bad. I think if I'd slapped the wall there, that would have probably ended up being a clip. Oh, this thing is, I tell you what, at low speed, the steering lock on this thing is heavy. And it still always feels odd whenever I've tried to do laps of Spa in reverse. Just this track feels just incredibly scary. Trying to do it the other way around. Right, let's tip it round then. Let's show you actually what the new moto layout here is. Because, of course, basically, if you don't know why they've added it, the clue's in the name. They want to bring motorbike racing back to Spa as well. So that was kind of one of the really dangerous corners, because, of course, you'd very likely just fall off. But you can see it's actually quite an aggressive bump, though, on the inside there. You get a 2.5 second penalty if you want to try and use it as a corner cut in a real race. But, yeah, it works. It's quite cool. I think it's a welcome addition. I wonder if we're going to see any series actually use it. I reckon it could be quite fun in, you know, like Clios or something like that, or Toyota GT86s and everything else. But yeah, like I said, you know, new Spa isn't a whole update in itself, or not kind of new content or anything like that. But yeah, that was good fun as well, just to have a quick dive in with. Thank you all so much for watching this video. If you have enjoyed, please do make sure to leave a like, get yourself subscribed. Like I said, I'm trying to bring back this channel a bit more with some sim racing content throughout the remainder of 2024. I've got plenty of different video ideas that I want to try to incorporate as well, so hopefully that sounds good to you guys. But yeah, we'll be back very soon then, hopefully with a McLaren 720S review. But if not, then I guess we're going to have to wait for Season 4 Round 1, and we'll take on some new series, I think. I haven't quite decided yet, but it's going to be good fun.